A man's hand reaches for something on the ground. Not a weapon, not a bandage. A German stick grenade still hissing, lying between 8 pairs of boots. He is 23 years old. He is a private in the British Army. He has maybe 2 seconds. The fuse on a Model 24 burns for 4.5 seconds. The German who threw it used at least 2 of those. His section is clustered tight 8 men inside a kill radius of 15 yards. If this grenade detonates where it landed, most of them die. Not might. Die, the blast radius of a Model 24 at ground level is absolute at 5 meters. They are closer than that. He grabs it with his right hand. He begins the throw. He does not finish it. The explosion took his hand. But it did not take his section. And what he did next made a military surgeon read his own report twice before signing it. This is Monte Cassino. May 1944. The Italian campaign's most blood-soaked mountain, and this is the war's most extraordinary grenade story, verified by 4 men who watched it happen. The abbey sits on a ridge 1,700 feet above the Leary Valley. It has watched over that valley since the year 529. Saint Benedict built it. 15 centuries of monks prayed inside its walls. They copied manuscripts by hand. They preserved the written memory of Western civilization through the Dark Ages. By 1944, the abbey had survived Lombard raids, Saracen sacks, an earthquake, and Napoleon. It would not survive the Second World War. By January 1944, it watched over something else, the Gustav Line, Germany's fortress wall across Italy. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring built it along the narrowest part of the peninsula. Every road to Rome ran through this valley. Every approach to this valley ran under the guns on that mountain. The geography was perfect for defense. The Rapido River cut across the valley floor like a moat. The mountains rose steeply on either side, channeling any attacker into killing zones. Kesselring looked at the terrain and understood what it meant. The Allies could not go around it. They had to go through it. 3 times the Allies attacked Monte Cassino. 3 times they failed. American, British, Indian, New Zealand, Gurkha, it did not matter. The mountain broke them all. Private Sean Donoghue arrived for the 4th attempt. He carried a Lee Enfield rifle, 60 rounds, and a detail about himself that would matter more than any of it. He shot left-handed. His right hand was just the one he wrote letters home with. That distinction was about to become the most important fact of his life. The 4th battle had a name: Operation Diadem. General Harold Alexander designed it to do what 3 offensives could not: break the Gustav Line, open the road, take Rome. 20 divisions would attack a 32-kilometer front. 1,500 guns would fire the opening barrage. And somewhere in that enormous machine of men and metal, 1 private from a British infantry section would reach for a German grenade with the wrong hand. The men defending Monte Cassino were not ordinary soldiers. They were Fallschirmjäger German paratroopers. The 1st Parachute Division, commanded by Generalmajor Richard Heydrich. The Wehrmacht called them the best division in the German army. The Allies called them the Green Devils. Heydrich was 50 years old in 1944. He had fought in the First World War as a teenager. He won the Iron Cross before he turned 20. Between the wars, he became one of the founding architects of German airborne doctrine. He believed paratroopers were not simply soldiers who arrived by air. They were soldiers who fought when outnumbered, cut off, and surrounded, and won. That belief would define Monte Cassino. They had jumped into Crete in 1941. They had seized Maleme Airfield under murderous fire from New Zealand defenders. They held the runway while transport planes landed reinforcements around burning wreckage. They won the island. But the cost was catastrophic. Over 4,000 Fallschirmjäger were killed or wounded in 10 days. Hitler looked at those numbers and canceled all future airborne operations. The paratroopers would never jump into combat again. By 1944, they no longer jumped from aircraft. They fought as elite infantry, and they fought with a ferocity that terrified everyone who faced them. Their reputation preceded them like a warning. Heydrich moved his paratroopers into the casino ruins in February 1944. The Allied bombers had already destroyed the monastery. They thought they were removing a German observation post. They were building the Fallschirmjäger, a fortress. Every shattered wall became a firing position. Every crater became a bunker. Every pile of ancient stone became cover that no amount of shelling could remove because it was already destroyed. The rubble was better than concrete. Shells that would have collapsed intact walls simply rearranged debris that was already broken. The paratroopers dug into it like insects into wood. The 1st Parachute Division turned rubble into a killing ground. 300 paratroopers held the monastery sector. Allied bombardments killed half of them. The remaining half held the line anyway. They rotated the dead out and the living forward. They fought in shifts. They slept in holes. They ate cold rations in positions that smelled of cordite and decay. Donoghue's section would be walking into that. The first battle began on 17 January 1944. The Americans crossed the Rapido River at night. The 36th Infantry Division Texas National Guard, men from Dallas and San Antonio and El Paso, pushed rubber boats into black water under German machine gun fire. Many of the boats were shredded before they reached the far bank. Those who made it across found minefields on the other side. German 15th Panzer Grenadier Division drove them back by morning. The 36th Division lost 2,100 men in 2 days at the river alone. The divisional commander, Major General Fred Walker, wrote in his diary that night. He called the crossing a disaster. The second battle came in February. Allied bombers flattened the Abbey on the 15th. 239 aircraft dropped 453 tons of bombs on a building that had stood for 14 centuries. The explosions were visible from Naples, 60 miles away. Infantry attacked the ruins that same night. A company of the Royal Sussex Regiment hit Point 593, the German strongpoint below the monastery. They climbed a slope so steep that men pulled themselves upward by grabbing roots and rocks. German paratroopers waited until they were within grenade range. The Sussex took 50% casualties. They gained nothing. Point 593 remained German. The third battle came in March. 750 tons of bombs, 1,000 artillery pieces by room. German paratroopers fought them for every corridor. They popped out of cellars and rubble piles that the New Zealanders thought were empty. Gurkhas reached within 250 yards of the monastery on Hangman's Hill. They could see the broken walls. They could not be supplied. They could not advance. They were pulled back. 3 offensives. Tens of thousands of casualties. The Gustav Line held. By spring 1944, Monte Cassino had consumed more Allied blood than any single position in the Italian campaign, and Sean Donoghue was marching toward it for attempt number 4. The men around him knew the arithmetic. 3 failures meant the 4th had to work or the road to Rome stayed closed. But the 4th also meant something else that nobody discussed aloud. It meant the German defenders had been learning for 4 months. They knew every approach. They had pre-registered every mortar. They had mapped every dead ground and every piece of cover the Allies might use. 4 months of preparation against an attack they knew was coming. General Alexander changed the equation. Not with better plans. With weight. He pulled the 8th Army from the Adriatic coast in secret. He moved entire divisions across the spine of Italy at night. Trucks drove without headlights on mountain roads. Units removed their insignia. Radio traffic was faked on the Adriatic coast to suggest they were still there. Field Marshal Kesselring, commanding all German forces in Italy, did not know they were coming. On the night of 11 May 1944, "1,600 guns opened fire at 2,300 hours. The ground shook for miles. Farmers in villages 10 kilometers behind the line felt their windows rattle. The barrage lasted 40 minutes. British Chihé Corps crossed the Rapido downstream of Cassino. The French Expeditionary Corps attacked through the Urunci Mountains on the left terrain the Germans believed impassable. On the right, the Polish II Corps prepared to assault the monastery itself. General Anders told his Polish troops that the honor of capturing the abbey would be theirs. Many of those men had lost their country in 1939. They wanted the honor badly enough to die for it. Alexander's decision followed a pattern his predecessors had not used. He attacked everywhere, simultaneously, with everything he had. The risk was total commitment. If any corps failed, there was no reserve. The result was the first genuine crack in the Gustav Line since January. The French broke through first. Moroccan goumiers moved through mountains the Germans had dismissed as uncrossable. They climbed in darkness, carrying their weapons on their backs. They took Monte Mayo, the southern anchor of the Gustav Line, in 2 days. The German 71st Division collapsed. General Juin's men opened a gap that Kesselring could not close. For the first time in 4 months, the line was moving. Donoghue's section moved with it. Somewhere on the Cassino massif, a German paratrooper was loading a Model 24 stick grenade into his belt. He had not yet pulled the fuse cord. That moment was still days away. The weapon that would destroy Sean Donoghue's hand was designed in 1915. The German army called it the Steel Handgranate Model 24. Everyone else called it the potato masher. It weighed just over a pound. Its wooden handle was 14 inches long. Its cylindrical head contained 170 grams of TNT. The fuse was a Brennzünder 24, a friction igniter. The thrower unscrewed the metal cap at the base of the handle, gripped a small porcelain bead, and pulled. A rough steel rod scraped through a friction compound. Sparks lit a powder delay pellet. The pellet burned for exactly 4.5 seconds plus or minus 0.2 of a second. Then the detonator fired, and the TNT charge shattered the steel casing outward. Here is what matters about the Model 24. It was a blast weapon, not a fragmentation grenade. Its killing power came from concussive force, not shrapnel. Its thin steel walls produced fewer fragments than a British Mills bomb. But those fragments traveled fast enough to sever bone. A partial detonation one, where the charge did not fully ignite, still produced enough force to destroy a human hand. The British grenades that Donoghue carried were different. The Mills bomb was a pineapple-shaped lump of cast iron designed to shatter into dozens of jagged fragments. It had a 7-second fuse. The Model 24 had a shorter fuse and a longer throw. The wooden handle gave advantage. A strong man could throw 130 to 40 meters. A Mills bomb went 25 at most. That range advantage mattered when you held the high ground. Thrown downhill from an elevated position, a Model 24 could cover even more distance. The German paratroopers at Cassino held the high ground, and the fuse delay 4.5 seconds assumed the thrower pulled the cord and threw immediately. If a German paratrooper pulled the cord, counted 1 second, and threw, the man catching it had roughly 3 seconds. If he counted 2 seconds, the man had 2. Donoghue had less than 2. He did not know that yet. Nobody ever does. By mid-May, the Gustav Line was cracking along its entire length. The French had turned the German flank. The British had bridged the Rapido. Polish troops were grinding toward the monastery from the north. On paper, Diadem was working. Alexander's gamble was paying off. But strategy maps do not show what happens inside a section of 8 men climbing toward a German position on broken ground. Maps do not show the moment when the terrain forces you to bunch together. When the rocks narrow, the path squeezes, and the men behind you press forward, because stopping means dying in the open. Donoghue's section was assaulting a German defensive position on the Cassino massif. They were infantrymen doing what infantrymen did at Cassino, moving uphill into prepared defenses, closing the distance yard by yard. The ground beneath them was limestone and shattered rock. Every step sent loose stones clattering downhill. Every noise told the Germans exactly where they were. There is a particular kind of fear that belongs to men moving uphill toward a position they cannot see. They know the defenders are watching. They know the defenders are waiting. They do not know for what. A machine gun. a mortar, a grenade. And in one of those yards, the ground forced them together, 8 men tightly grouped. The kind of clustering that section commanders have nightmares about, the kind that makes a single grenade worth the effort of throwing. A German paratrooper saw that cluster. He unscrewed the base cap of a Model 24. He pulled the porcelain bead. The fuse started burning. He counted. Then he threw. Alexander's strategy was working. The line was breaking. The road to Rome was opening. But none of that could protect 8 men from 170 grams of TNT already falling toward them through the Italian air. 8 men moving uphill, rifle fire cracking off the rocks above them. The German position is close enough to throw a grenade downhill. Sean Donoghue is somewhere in that group. He is a private. He carries a Lee Enfield. He fires at left-handed, an oddity in a right-handed army that did not much care which hand you used as long as you hit what you aimed at. His section is compressed. The ground has done what the Germans could not. It has pushed the British soldiers together, not because they are careless, because the terrain gives them no choice. Somewhere above them, a Fallschirmjäger reaches for his belt. The stick grenade is designed to be thrown further than any Allied equivalent, 30 to 40 meters compared to 25 for a Mills bomb. The wooden handle gives advantage. Thrown downhill from an elevated position, the range extends further. The German pulls the cord. The fuse ignites. He throws. The Model 24 lands in the middle of Donoghue's section, between 8 pairs of boots. Hissing, every man in that cluster knows what a potato masher looks like. Every man in that cluster knows what it does. Nobody knows how much time is left on the fuse. The answer is almost none. This was exactly what Richard Heydrich had designed. His paratroopers did not try to hold a continuous line. They held positions, strong points, nests, individual bunkers built into rubble. They let the British come close. Then they killed them with grenades, machine guns, and mortars at direct range. Heydrich understood a truth about Monte Cassino that the Allied commanders learned slowly. The mountain was not a fortress because of its walls. It was a fortress because of its angles. Every approach channeled attackers into killing zones. Every gully compressed men together. Every German position had a clear throwing arc to the ground below. The grenade lying in the middle of Donoghue's section was not an accident. It was an engineering solution, a weapon placed exactly where Heydrich's defensive design intended it to land. The question was no longer whether the strategy was working. The question was whether one man could beat the mathematics of a 4-5-second fuse that had already been burning for at least 2.5 seconds. The grenade is on the ground. It is hissing. 8 men are inside its blast radius. Sean Donoghue is closest to it. He reaches with his right hand, not his shooting hand, his writing hand, the one that does not matter for fighting. He does not think about which hand. He does not calculate. Instinct and geometry choose for him. The grenade is to his right. His right hand is closer. It reaches. He grabs the wooden handle of the Model 24. His fingers close around 14 inches of turned wood. He begins the throwing motion, arm back, weight shifting, the overhand arc that a stick grenade demands. He does not complete it. The fuse has less time than he estimated. The Brennzünder 24 reaches 0. The detonator fires. The TNT charge ignites partially. The grenade detonates in his right hand, not a full detonation, a partial one. The blast destroys his right hand, tears it apart at the wrist. The concussive force throws him backward off his feet, but his hand, the hand that is disintegrating, is positioned at the apex of the throw. Arm extended, above his head, angled outward and upward. The main explosive force follows that angle. It vents upward. It vents outward, away from the 8 men on the ground below. The grenade's remaining momentum carries the fragments out of the section's immediate area. The secondary fragmentation disperses above and beyond them. Nobody else in the section is killed. His right hand is gone. His section is alive. The German position above them is still firing. Donoghue is on the ground. His right arm ends at the wrist. Blood is soaking into Italian dirt. The German position above him is still firing. His section needs to withdraw to cover. They need covering fire to do it. Someone has to shoot. The Lee-Enfield bolt-action rifle is designed for right-handed shooters. The bolt handle sits on the right side. A right-handed man works it with his right hand while his left supports the stock. A left-handed man reverses the process, reaching over with his left hand to work the bolt. It is slower. It is awkward. But it works. Donoghue has been doing it that way his entire Army career. He has never known any other way to shoot. He reaches across his body with his left hand. He picks up his Lee-Enfield. He shoulders it left-handed, the way he has always shot, and he fires, round after round into the German position, left-handed, covering his section's withdrawal, with his right hand destroyed and bleeding freely against his chest. The section moves. Man by man, they pull back to a covered position behind a rock outcrop. Each man runs while Donoghue fires. Then the next man runs. The Lee-Enfield holds 10 rounds. He reloads with his left hand, pulling the bolt, pressing rounds from a charger clip. A task designed for 2 hands, done with 1. Donoghue fires until the last man reaches cover. Then he follows them. He reached the covered position. He checked his section. He looked at each man. Then and only then he reported his wound. He told his corporal his hand was gone as though reporting a jammed rifle. The corporal looked at the stump. He looked at the rifle Donoghue was still holding in his left hand. 4 men in that section later gave eyewitness statements describing what they saw. Every account matched. They carried him down the mountain to a field hospital. A surgeon examined what remained of his right hand. There was nothing to save. The amputation was performed below the wrist. The surgeon wrote his report. According to the account, he read it twice before signing it. Not because the medical details were unusual. Blast amputations happened every day at Cassino. Surgeons at the field hospitals along the Rapido River had seen hundreds. He read it twice because of what the patient did after losing the hand. Picked up a rifle with his remaining hand, fired accurately enough to provide effective covering fire. Continued fighting until his section reached safety. Reported the wound last. The surgeon signed the report. Meanwhile, the 4th Battle of Monte Cassino reached its conclusion. On the morning of 18 May 1944, soldiers of the Polish 12th Podolski Lancers climbed the hill to the abbey. They found it empty. The last German paratroopers had withdrawn during the night. A Polish soldier raised a regimental pennant over the ruins. It was the first flag to fly over Monte Cassino since the bombing 3 months earlier. General Anders wept. Many of his men had died on those slopes. They were fighting for a country that no longer existed, Poland, carved up between Germany and the Soviet Union in 1939. Capturing Monte Cassino was the one thing they could give their dead. The Gustav Line was broken. The road to Rome was open. It cost the Allies over 43,000 casualties across the 4th battle alone. German losses reached 51,000. The town of Cassino was erased. The abbey was rubble. Entire villages in the Liri Valley had ceased to exist. Heydrich's paratroopers, the Green Devils, who had held the mountain for 4 months, withdrew north in good order. They had lost more than half their division. They had fought until holding was no longer physically possible. Then they walked away from the ruins they had defended since February. The 1st Parachute Division would fight again at Rimini, at Bologna, all the way to the end. They never stopped being dangerous. But Cassino was the place that made their name immortal. Private Sean Donoghue saw none of this. He was in a hospital bed, learning to button his shirt with one hand, learning to tie his boots with one hand, learning all the small, ordinary things that 2 hands do without thinking. The British Army discharged Sean Donoghue in August 1944, 3 months after the grenade. Standard procedure for a man who had lost his dominant hand. Except his dominant hand was his left, and his left hand was untouched. He wrote a letter to his company commander, left-handed the way he had always written. He requested reconsideration of his discharge. His argument was simple. He shot left-handed. He had always shot left-handed. The hand he lost was not the hand he fought with. The hand he lost was not the hand he aimed with. The hand he lost was the hand that held the rifle steady, and a man could learn to do that differently. He could strap the forestock to his right forearm. He could brace the rifle against a wall or a rock. He had worked the bolt left-handed his entire career. Nothing about his shooting had changed. He was asking to go back. The request was denied. The Army did not evaluate soldiers on a case-by-case basis for injuries like this. A man missing a hand was discharged. The regulation did not ask which hand. It did not ask what the man could still do. It did not account for a man who shot with the hand he still had. It was a rule written for the average soldier, applied to a man who was not average. Somewhere in a filing cabinet in a British Army records office, a one-handed soldier's letter sat next to a surgeon's report that its author had read twice. The Army had its regulations. A man missing a hand was discharged. It did not matter which hand. It did not matter that he could still shoot. Donoghue went home. The war went north without him. Rome fell on 5 June 1944. The Allies landed in Normandy the next day. The Italian campaign ground on for another year through the Gothic Line, through another winter, through mountains that looked like Cassino and cost almost as much. 4 men who had been standing inside the blast radius of a German grenade went with it. They went because Donoghue had grabbed that grenade with the hand he could afford to lose. They fought through the rest of the Italian campaign with their lives intact. They went home to families who never knew how close they came to receiving a telegram from the War Office. A hand reaches for something on the ground. That is where this story began. A right hand closing around a wooden handle, knowing what it held. Knowing the fuse was burning. Knowing the arithmetic was impossible. He did not do the calculation. He did not weigh the odds. He reached. And when the hand that reached was destroyed, he used the one that remained. He picked up his rifle. He covered his section. He walked off that hill under his own power. He reported his wound last. Then he asked to go back and do it again. The British Army said no. They were wrong. He had already proven with his left hand on a rifle and his right hand gone that their regulations did not account for a man like Sean Donoghue. But no regulation ever could. Stories like Donoghue's survive only if someone carries them forward. The way he carried his section off that hill. If this one reached you, share it. Subscribe so the next one finds you. And leave a comment telling us which forgotten story you think deserves to be told next. The monastery stands again today. Rebuilt stone by stone after the war, white against the Italian sky. Below it, rows of white headstones mark the Polish cemetery. The graves face the abbey. The dead still look up at the thing they died to capture. In the British cemetery down the road, other headstones stand in quieter rows. Some mark men from the same regiments that fought alongside Donoghue's section. Some mark men who never made it as far up the mountain as he did. None of them had the chance to write a letter asking to go back. He did. And that letter denied, filed, forgotten may be the bravest thing he ever wrote. Braver, even, than reaching for the grenade. Because the grenade was instinct. The letter was a choice.